Welcome, MechWarriors, to PGIPLS, a new video series where I expose you to my terrible opinions about the game. Now don't get me wrong, I'm over the moon that flamers finally have something to do in the game. My concern is not that they're overpowered, my concern is that they are imbalanced, swinging from being absolutely, completely useless in a vast majority of situations and wildly unfair in some others. And most of all, the systems behind the flamers are needlessly complicated, and the flamers themselves are very difficult and unsatisfying to use. So in case you aren't aware, in the recent patch, flamers were given a huge buff. Previously they were literally less useful than a Vindicator. Sorry, that was low-hanging fruit. Flamers now actually have quite a lot to offer someone who takes them on their mech. They do outrageous amounts of heat to the target that you're applying them to. 4.5 heat per second per flamer. Now to put that in context, a mech with 10 double heat sinks dissipates 2 heat per second. You need 27 clan double heat sinks to nullify the effect of one flamer. Now it keeps getting better for you, flamer user. For the first 4.75 seconds, each flamer only generates 1 heat per second in you. On paper, these things are insane. But that's where the party is stopping for most people who have tried to use flamers since the new patch. Only on paper are they this good. First off, they literally don't do any damage, 0.1 damage per second. That it might as well be 0. You can only heat somebody up to 90%. Once they hit 90%, they don't take any extra heat, it doesn't slow down their cooling rate above 90%, you just hold them there. There's no bonus damage, no nothing. I don't necessarily disagree with the 90% heat cap, but the fact that flamers are literally useless when they get there, and you have no way of telling that the target is at 90%, that level of uncertainty and total lack of feedback is really off-putting to someone trying to use these. They're just really fiddly to use. You have to hold them on the target, face tanking them, putting yourself in considerable risk. You have a real lack of feedback about how much heat you're actually putting into a target. There's no target information on that whatsoever. So sometimes it just doesn't feel like you're doing anything at all. The only time you get any real feedback that you've done something to the enemy is when they shut themselves down. And that doesn't always happen. And here's something which just has to go in its own category. I would put this in good because it's technically good for the person who's trying to use flamers, but it's ugly as hell. There is 0 boating penalty. In actual fact, the system encourages you to boat them. I just have to put a 4th category in for the heat increase mechanic. Whenever you're firing a flamer on your mech, the amount of heat that they generate increases, but only after 4.75 seconds. So if you stop firing and then start firing again, you're good. Wait, no, there's a timer, and the flamer remembers. So if you only fire half the time, but then all of this is independent of the flamer, provided that you don't have one flamer any longer, same as if you have 12 flamers, 4 same as if you have 8 flamers, 7 and 5. All joking aside, it's complete and utter, unmitigated nonsense. Players understandably complain that ghost heat, or heat scaling, is needlessly complicated. And they're not wrong, but all you have to do for that is remember to not fire more than 6 or whatever number of weapons it is to trigger heat scaling. This is orders of magnitude more complicated to work with. How the hell are new players supposed to pick this up when veteran players are bouncing off of this mechanic? It's really clear that the intention behind this was to prevent people from firing the flamer for more than 5 seconds. Then just provide a hard limit that prevents people from firing it for more than 5 seconds, like a recharging ammo pool. It makes perfect sense from the fiction side of things. Flamers vent reactor plasma. If you want to explain it, it's a reservoir of reactor plasma that gets depleted by the flamers and refilled over time as the reactor operates. Easy! So let's say we go with this idea, and we have a recharging ammo pool. Now we have a way of limiting how much heat you can put into the target to a fair level, and we have a boating penalty. The more flamers you have, the faster you use up that ammo. But there's still a reason to take multiple flamers, because then you can bring somebody up to the heat threshold faster. What I haven't talked about yet is the fact that when being held at 90% by a flamer, you're basically stun locked. You can chain fire lasers, or SRMs, or autocannons in return, but if you don't have enough heat sinks, even a thing like an AC-20 will cause you to shut down. Additionally, being forced to fire your weapons individually forces you to face the enemy, preventing you from torso twisting and armor rolling effectively. Basically a death sentence in a brawl. It's because of this that myself, others have reported huge effectiveness using flamers in 1v1 situations where you can control that individual enemy. I'm not even talking about a bunch of lights ganging up on one enemy, I'm talking about one mech versus one enemy. And I cannot overstate just how effective flamers are in a duel. Over the past week, I cannot recall a single time where me and my flamer-equipped mech has lost a duel against someone in anything other than an AC-5 boat. And I'm not even that good a player. But on the other hand, flamers are still completely pants in a large fight. To get the best out of them, you have to hold them on your target, which means you are face tanking them and you will be focused down by their buddies in an instant. Worst of all, larger fights are usually resolved very quickly. You need to be holding your flamers down on somebody for quite a few seconds before you make any real difference. So what we currently have is a weapon system which is quite frankly unfair in 1v1 contexts, but really quite laughable anywhere else. In my mind, the solution to these problems is to make flamers much more effective in short bursts. Just make them have a duration, like a laser. You push the button and the flamer fires for, say, 2 seconds. Now I'm going to be throwing out some numbers. They're rough, nice round numbers to try and build a picture of what we're going for. I'm not set in stone on any of them. Let's try to stick to something similar to the 4.5 heat per second that's in the game at the moment. Let's have a duration of 2 seconds, a cooldown of 3, giving us a total refire time of 5 seconds. If each time it's fired it can deliver a total of 20 heat, we have something which achieves an average of 4 heat per second. Let's have a quick demonstration of what this would look like. The fire starter is going to fire 1 flamer, and then 2. With the relatively short duration, he's free to torso twist away, and that's compared up to how flamers currently behave. Compared to the current system, it's much easier for him to use, and it's more shocking to me to be on the receiving end. However, being constrained by the recharging ammo system means that this level of improved performance is only possible in short bursts. The more flamers you have, the faster you consume the ammo. After running out, you have to wait a full 10 seconds before 1 flamer is available again. You could potentially equip 4 flamers, guaranteeing that someone's heat meter reaches 90%. This comes at the downside of you only being able to do this every 40 seconds. The huge increase in burst potential for even 1 flamer allows you to make a much bigger difference at the start of a fight, and therefore in a large brawl. On the other hand, having a fixed duration with a cooldown gives your enemy a bigger window in which to return fire with more weapons than just a single laser. This prevents them from being a complete stun lock, which they currently are when used correctly. So to summarise, if something similar to the duration and cooldown and the recharging ammo mechanics that I've just described are implemented, we'll see flamers which have a very strong effect in short fights, but not in protracted engagements. They'll be very disruptive to an opponent, but they won't stun lock them, and crucially, they will be useful in large fights without being too useful in one-on-one engagements. And for those still listening, here's a couple of smaller ideas which I don't think are quite so crucial, but nonetheless I think are worth considering. Once their heat mechanic can be balanced correctly, I don't see any harm in them being allowed to do a small amount of damage. 5 damage per burst. This would give them a DPS of 1, with a heat per second of 1, it'd essentially be a hot small laser. We can also attempt to address the fact that they do nothing over 90%. One or both of these ways could be used. One is to give them bonus damage over 90%, 1 damage for every 4 surplus heat. So in effect, if you fired them at somebody who's already overheated, your flamer would do double damage. Currently, while being affected by a flamer, you cool at the normal rate, down to 90%. If we were to change this so that a flamer prevents you from cooling off during this time period, we could have a very interesting mechanic where you could time a flamer burst just right in somebody's laser vomit alpha to shut them down. And currently you can't tell that your enemy is at 90%. Let's address that by adding in a heat vision mech module which displays the heat percentage. This would have uses far and beyond flamers, allowing you to better understand how close somebody is to shutting down in ordinary combat. Thanks to Criven for this idea. If you're still on board, thanks for making it this far. And if you're a PGI employee, double thanks for you for taking the time. If you like this idea, either all of it or parts of it, please share it, please discuss it. The only way changes can be made is if the developers are made aware of it. Here's the Twitter address of one. He's quite important. You should tweet him this.